As I watched the bartender, I caught his eye. Picking up the empty glass, I motioned for him to pour another. This will be only the second bourbon in the last 2 hours. I'm no wimp when it comes to drinking, but until a month ago, I had too many morning awakenings where I didn't remember what I did the night before. My problem is that the more I drink, the more thirsty I become. So now I limit myself to 2 drinks. Anyway, I'm sitting here waiting for a friend to walk through the door and save me. This is a story that will bring you back to my bar stool. My name is John Henry Kelly. I was named after my 2 great-grandfathers. It may not be that important to some, but I am proud of my heritage. At 6'2" and weighing about 210 pounds, I'm slightly larger than average. I think the story really begins in high school. By my senior year, I was of age and had a reputation for hooking up with girls quickly. My nickname was actually Slippery. The reputation was well-deserved, I might add, and I did date, love, and leave many girls. Today, I would be called a ladies' man. Usually, most of the girls I talked to were also ladies' men. There was no harm to the general population. The only exception is the reason I'm telling this story. The county fair opened on the same day as my graduation, and many graduates went to the fair to celebrate. Leslie Ann Bennett, I was also at the fair. She was the daughter of Thomas Bennett, pastor of the largest Baptist church in our city, and I met her by chance at the fair. She was and remains a very attractive young woman in her own right. Attractive until you see the twinkle in her eyes, and you know there's a devil inside her ready to come out. I thought that I was the one who could release this devil. We spent most of the evening together at the fair, but she had to go home with Cousin Jenny. I agreed to meet her the next evening at the fair. When we met the next evening, we simply walked past the fair towards the river. We had already seen all the rides at the fair, but I wanted to see the rides that Leslie had to offer. Walking together, holding hands, we found a very quiet beach. It was very secluded and far from the road. We stopped to talk and get to know each other better, and we really got to know each other better, When we left the riverbank, Leslie, being an adult, received her first man in her life. I lived up to my reputation as a bad boy and seduced this young lady. Now, this is important. I didn't force her. I actually tried to slow things down 3 times. I really tried to behave myself. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. Leslie was not one of the typical girls I hung out with. She was a good young lady and a preacher's daughter. However, the devil was released, and neither of us could resist the temptation he offered. As usual, the next day I almost forgot the words of love that I whispered to Leslie. This was my normal trick. I told the girls what they wanted to hear, but I didn't necessarily mean it. Oh, I may have meant it at the time, but it was usually just a way to get closer to certain young girls. Most of the girls I dated knew I was a ladies' man and didn't believe all the bullshit I was saying. But that didn't concern Leslie Ann Bennett. Leslie believed my words and thought she had found the love of her life. She called me the next day and started talking about when we would see each other again. Leslie also mentioned something about meeting her family, getting engaged, and some other very scary ideas. At least they scared me. I tried to be gentle with her. I really didn't want to offend her, and I didn't want to get married right now. Eventually, she realized that I was not her knight in shining armor, and we weren't going to ride off into the sunset together. The next day, everything went wrong. Mr. Bennett came to my garage where I was working part-time. He wanted to know whether my intentions towards his daughter were noble, in other words, whether I intended to make her an honest woman. I told him that I had no intentions towards Leslie, honorable or otherwise. Mr. Bennett informed me that financial arrangements would be made if I married Leslie. He said that I would be given a house, a car, and a well-paid job. Mr. Bennett, Leslie is a very nice girl, and we had fun together. But that's all it was, a little fun, I told him. You took advantage of a young, impressionable, and innocent girl, John. I intend to make sure you take up your responsibilities, young man. From that moment on, everything went downhill. He walked away muttering something about revenge, the commandment, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," and some other wonderful things. A week later, my boss called me into his office. He said he was firing me. I asked why, and he said he couldn't afford to keep me. I offered to work fewer hours or for less hourly pay if he wanted. I wanted to work with machines, and it was a good experience. Finally, he broke down and told me that Mr. Bennett was putting pressure on him. Bennett was on the bank's board of directors. The bank held a mortgage on the garage, hence the pressure. I sat in the office for a minute, digesting this information. Don't worry about it, boss. It's time for me to move on. You've been good to me, and I've learned a lot. Thank you. The next morning, I packed my things into the truck and headed west. I thought I could always find a job repairing cars and support myself. That's exactly what I did. I found a job in Arizona at a used car lot. Cars would come in needing repairs, and I would fix them so they could be sold. I could fix most of them cheaply, increasing the site's profits. About 8 months after starting work on site, one of the owners and I opened our own auto repair shop. He provided the money, and I did the rest. The share was 60-40, 40% belonged to me. Becoming a partner in this business was a significant achievement for a 20-year-old guy. Our garage has been a great success. Things went great for about a year and a half. Then my share of the profits began to decline. I talked to my partner about the decline in profits. He said costs have risen dramatically and business has dropped. It didn't seem true. We had so much work to do that the recording was 3 weeks in advance. I ran a garage and knew that some things now cost more, but we simply passed on the increased cost to the customer. The increase in cost did not justify the shortcomings that my partner stated. I did some research and found out that my dear old partner had a gambling problem. That's where the money went. I showed him the results of my investigation, and he confessed. He offered to buy out my share when I threatened to go to a lawyer to get my money. The business was worth more than the $100,000 he offered, but I just wanted to leave. I didn't know where he got the money from, and I didn't care. I took the money in cash and went back to my hometown. Later, it turned out that my partner took out a loan from a loan shark to pay me. My old partner ended up without a business when he couldn't repay the debt on time. Little has changed in my hometown. Several businesses closed, several new ones opened. One of the new ones was an ice cream parlor, popular among non-drinkers and children. I don't know why, but I went there even though I didn't really like ice cream. I liked bourbon, but alcohol was a bit of a problem for me, so when I started my car repair business, I quit drinking and didn't think ice cream soda would put me off track. The first person I saw was Leslie Ann Bennett. She was sitting on a chair at the counter, with her back turned to me. Leslie was with cousin Jenny. Jenny was the first to notice me and apparently said something to Leslie. Leslie turned and saw me. Her face turned red, and I thought she was embarrassed. Wrong again, as usual. I walked over and said, "Hey, Leslie, Jenny, how are you guys?" The next moment, my face lit up and my ears began to ring. Leslie hit me. I raised my hand and Leslie flinched slightly. I think she thought I was going to hit her. I just rubbed my face and looked at her. "Well, at least your arm is okay," I said. "That's good. See you ladies." I left the store without getting that ice cream soda. It was an awkward situation, and it was the only way I knew how to handle it. In fact, looking back, I probably got what I deserved. The first step was to find where to live. I found a small 2-bedroom condominium to rent. I needed a base until I figured out what to do next. On the third night in a new place called Doorbell, I had just finished my second and last beer of the day and was talking on my cell phone. Who could be at my door? I opened the door and was shocked. Leslie stood there. I ended the call and looked at her for a few seconds. "Can I come in?" Leslie asked. "Let me put on my football helmet first, then come in," I replied jokingly. I saw her flinch. "Just kidding, come in. How can I help? By the way, how do you know where I live?" "The company I work for owns this building. The office manager told me about you moving. There are 2 reasons why I came." "And what are they?" I asked. Leslie hesitated for a moment and then asked, "Why?" "Why what?" I asked, although I already guessed what she was talking about. "Why did you leave town? I know I scared you a little, but I thought we could talk. You left me like I had rabies or something. Then you left town. Why? Is it true? I asked. She nodded and I continued. Your father came to me. First he tried to pay me to marry you. He offered me a house, a car, and a job. When that didn't work, he pressured my boss to fire me. I didn't have work, and a powerful man was against me, so I left town. My father, right, I could have guessed. You didn't like me at the time, but I thought it was funny that you left because of me. You didn't seem like the type to run away because of me. I'm sorry, my father had no right to treat you like that. It's okay, everything worked out, maybe for the better. About that night by the river, John, I need. Stop, girl, now it's my turn. I have a couple of things I want to say about this. If your father hadn't intervened, I would have called you or met with you to discuss stuff. Were you going to call me? Leslie seemed surprised. Yeah, I was. Look, Leslie, we had a great time that night, but I didn't feel good afterwards. You weren't one of the girls I usually dated. You were special. If you remember, I tried to slow things down a few times. You didn't have any men before me. I shouldn't have been surprised by your reaction after that. I wanted to talk to you and explain myself, but I didn't have a chance. Sorry, John. I seem to be constantly apologizing, huh? Well, I do apologize for all the trouble. How do you apologize? Dinner with me tomorrow night, I said. What? Just dinner. Nothing more. I would like to explain myself, as I should have done then. Besides, you are a beautiful girl, and I am lonely. What do you say? I don't know. You hurt me. I know, Leslie. I was that guy back then, and I'm sorry, but I'm not that guy anymore. Have dinner with me, please. She looked at me with a slight smile and said, Okay, but only dinner, nothing more. The next evening, I took Leslie to a nice steakhouse in a nearby town about 20 miles away. We spent the entire evening chatting, talking, and really becoming friends. This was the first of many dinners. At first, we met once a week for dinner or a movie, then twice a week, then 3 times, and finally it was impossible to separate us, even with a crowbar. We spent 4 or 5 evenings a week together. The relationship grew from just friendship to something more, at least on my part. This happened over a period of about 2.5 months. We were exclusive to each other. In the old days, we would have dated. Nothing was said about what we exclusive. It was just like that. I had no problem dating only Leslie, and I was actually falling in love with this nice girl. We haven't slept together yet because I was trying to be a good boy. I found a job in a repair shop and did a good job. Between my job and my bank account, I was fine with money. Friday was usually our movie day, as the movies changed every Friday. Leslie said that she had something to do with her mother that Friday and that she would not be able to go. I was starting to worry. This was the 4th date she had canceled in the last 2 weeks. Was she tired of me, or was I just being paranoid? Remember that even if you are paranoid, this does not mean that they are not following you. I decided to go back into investigative mode. After getting burned in business, I developed a philosophy of trust but verify from time to time. It was one of those times. Maybe everything was fine and canceled dates were simply inevitable. But maybe not. I was going to find out what was what. In our small town, there were only 3 or 4 places to go on a date. You could go to a movie, an ice cream parlor, dinner at one of 3 places in the city, or go to the Crystal Palace. The Crystal Palace was a bar and grill with dancing every night and live music on the weekends. If Leslie was going somewhere, I didn't think it would be a movie or an ice cream parlor. People there knew both of us and would probably say something to me about us not being together. The Crystal Palace was where I would start. There were a few other bars in town, but they were small, local types. Not real date spots. Our date was scheduled for 7 o'clock, so I waited until 9 o'clock and pulled into the Crystal Palace parking lot. There, in the front row, was Leslie's car. Apparently, her mother wanted to have fun. I mean, Leslie had to help her mother today, or so Leslie said. Leslie and I have been to the Crystal Palace a few times, but not often enough to be regulars. The likelihood of anyone giving her away was slim. I walked through the back door and entered the building. There is a corner at the end of the bar where I could see most of the place and not be seen unless someone was specifically looking for me. I didn't think Leslie would be looking for me. I sat down on the last chair in this corner and looked at the dance floor. Leslie and Jenny were sitting at a table on the far side of the dance floor. Leslie wore a short skirt and low-cut top that showed off her cleavage. I would be upset if Leslie canceled our date just to meet Jenny. It wasn't about the canceled date, it was about the lies she told. Like I said, I was upset that Leslie lied to me. What made me want to punch someone in the face were the two guys sitting with them. It seemed like Leslie and the guy she was with were very comfortable with each other. He hugged her chair and put his hand on her knee. They talked and laughed together, and my heart broke. I watched them for about 30 minutes, I don't know how. They danced 3 or 4 times, and the slow dances were the hardest for me. It wasn't that they were kissing, but Leslie shouldn't have been there in the first place. Besides, it didn't seem like this was the first time they'd been together, and then I recognized him. It was Bill, the guy she was dating before I returned to town. I didn't know why they broke up, and it didn't matter to me. I had Leslie. Well, at least that's what I thought. Apparently, I was wrong. Okay, what should I do? I asked myself. If I walked up to their table and started asking Leslie what she was doing, trouble would start. I was so angry that I didn't think I could control myself. I could picture it in my mind. If I had walked up and asked Leslie what she was doing, her beau would probably have said something. I would have smashed his head, and then his friend would have intervened too. I would have smashed his head, or maybe mine. I didn't know if I could handle both of them. I wasn't afraid, but I didn't want to be beaten and put in jail if there was a better way. The old version of me would have said, go and fight, be a man. The new version of me would say, okay, but if possible, let's find a better way. You can always go back to the fight. Then I had another thought. Leslie and I were not engaged or married. We were just meeting, exclusively, as I thought, but we were just meeting. If we were married, I would punch him in the face for touching a married woman. I thought the guy wouldn't be there if Leslie didn't want him there, so it's all on her conscience. The guy probably didn't know about me and Leslie, or if he did, he was simply responding to Leslie's signals. It wasn't his fault. But this does not mean that he will go unpunished. I had a plan, and if he didn't interfere, fine. If he interferes, one of us will feel bad. I waited until the band took a break, finished off the large bourbon I was sipping, and walked across the dance floor. I stopped 10 feet from their table and just stood there, waiting. Leslie and her boyfriend were laughing about something and looking only at each other. Finally, she looked up and saw me. Leslie did a double take, and her eyes grew big. Her hands went up to her face, and she started shaking her head as if to say no, no. Jenny turned to see what Leslie was looking at, and I heard her say, "Oh, shit." Leslie stood up and began to walk around the table towards me. I just raised my hand to stop her, and she sat back down. Walking closer to the table, I asked, "Leslie, where is your mom? I didn't know she liked places like this. We could have taken her with us last time we came here." Leslie didn't know what to say. I pulled Leslie's photo out of my wallet and placed it on the table in front of her. I removed and added the St. Christopher medallion she gave me. The belt buckle she bought me at the rodeo joined the little dog in front of her. As I leaned across the table to say my piece, her beau put his hand on my shoulder to stop me. His friend also stood up. "Don't interfere, Bill. This is none of your business," I told him. "You really don't need this." "You're upsetting the lady, boy. You better leave," he said. Leslie motioned for him to sit down and said, "Don't interfere, Bill. This is between me and John." "So this guy tried to steal my girlfriend while I was away," Bill said. He stood there trying to decide what to do. "Buddy, you're about to make a big mistake. I don't know if I can handle both of you, but I promise you, Bill, you'll go to the hospital if we hook up, no matter what happens." He sat down at Leslie's insistence, then his friend sat down too. "Good choice, guys. That's it, Les. I'm gone and it's over. See you," I said. I turned my back and left the bar. I needed to leave while I could still control myself. I almost lost control when the guy touched my shoulder. My truck took me back to the condo. There must have been a truck because I don't remember the road. My cell phone started ringing before I got home. I just turned it off. I knew who it was and didn't want to talk to her. When I got home, I grabbed a bottle of Jack Daniels and sat on the deck. I decided that we would see who would last longer, me or the bottle. After drinking a couple of sips, I changed my mind. I didn't want to drink to the point of unconsciousness again. Was there, did this, got the damn t-shirt. I returned to the condominium and put the bottle away. 2 sips were enough. About an hour after I got home, called doorbell. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I could guess who it was. I looked through the door peephole and was surprised. It was Jenny, and it looked like she was alone. I was wondering why Jenny. I could understand Leslie and almost expected it. One way to find out, so I opened the door. I need to talk to you, John. Can I come in? What should we talk about, Jenny? You got what you wanted. Les and I are done. This is what you wanted, isn't it? You're right. I haven't loved you since you left Leslie after that night at the county fair, but that's more important than my feelings for you. Leslie is in terrible condition. She sits in the car and cries. She wants to come in and talk to you, but she's afraid. Why does she have to cry? She got what she wanted. A few months of me as a beau until her boyfriend comes back. Yes, I know that she and Bill dated until he left for Mexico for work. I came back to town right away after he left, and both Les and I started dating. He was away for about 3 months, and we dated for about 2.5 months. I was a temporary replacement until he returned. Mushroom. Yeah, kept in the dark and fed crap. I don't need to talk to her. Tell her it's okay. It was fun, and now we can both move on. She can be with Bill and not worry about me. It's not what she wants you, Jenny said. That's not going to happen. I thought for a minute and then said, go get her, Jenny. Let's get this over with. I have a lot to do tomorrow, and I need to sleep. Jenny walked out to the car and led Leslie back to the condominium. I was sitting in my chair when they entered the living room. Pointing to the sofa, I invited them to sit there. Leslie was still crying. I sat and waited for Leslie to start talking. She was the guilty party, and I wasn't going to make it easy for her. Leslie continued to look down. She didn't look me in the eye. Finally, I got tired of it. Come on, Leslie, let's get started. I need to sleep because I have a lot to do tomorrow. You wanted to talk to me, so talk or leave. I don't care. John, it's not what you think it is, Leslie said. Let me tell you what I thought, Leslie. I might be wrong, but I thought you canceled our date to go out with this guy. I thought you lied to me when you told me you'd be helping your mother. It seemed to me that you went dancing and having fun with Bill. It seemed to me that you allowed him to hug and kiss you. All this happened in front of people we both know. If I hadn't shown up, would you have gone home with him? What should I think watching you behave with him the way you used to behave with me? It seemed to me that I was a convenient distraction while you waited for Bill to return from your work in Mexico. Is that about all it seemed to me? Is there anything I don't understand about your lies? I wasn't going to go home with Bill. He and I were never intimate. You're the only one I've ever made love to. Explain to me, Les. Why did you lie? Why did you date another man when we were supposed to be exclusive? Explain, Les. Bill and I broke up when he went to Mexico. You came back to town and were so sweet that I started dating you. I believed I was falling in love with you. Then Bill came back and called me. The feelings I had for him came up again. I met with him to find out if my feelings for you were real. I didn't want unresolved issues to get in the way of us, John. Anything else, Les? Tonight was the last time I was going to see Bill. Please, John, try to understand. You already hurt me once, and I felt like I needed to be sure of my feelings for you, she replied. I had to stop and pull myself together. I didn't want to scream and yell. I just wanted to express my disappointment and pain. Jenny said, Come on, John, It's not that big of a deal. She didn't sleep with that guy. Les was just dancing and having fun. Don't interfere, Jenny, or I swear I'll throw you out the door. It's none of your business. Just sit there and be quiet. I had to take a minute to collect my thoughts. I didn't mean to attack Leslie. I just wanted to tell her how I felt. Les, I truly believe that if you had come to me and explained your feelings, I would have allowed you to meet Bill. It's easy to say now, but I believe I would understand. I wouldn't like it, but I think that I could live with it. After what happened between us before, I can understand that you are a little worried about me. I told you before that I'm not the same guy who hurt you back then. I've changed, and I think for the better. What bothers me is you lying to my face. Helping your mother, that's how. You were at a party with my old boyfriend. From the way you acted around each other, I don't believe this was the first and last time you were going to see him. This is deception in my eyes, and I do not accept it. I said it tonight, Les, I'm done and gone. It's over, so you can go back to Bill if you want. You don't have to lie anymore. Leslie was crying again. She said, "Please, John, I love you. I was wrong to lie to you. I'm sorry. Let's go back to the way it was. I know you love me. Leslie, I really love you and maybe always will. But your lies have destroyed the trust between us. I love you, but I can't forget the lies and deception. I will always doubt who you are with if you are late home or don't answer on the mobile. Suspicion will eat us. Let it go, Leslie. It's best for both of us." Leslie and Jenny left my place and I went to bed, but didn't get much sleep. Leslie tried to get me to change my mind over the next few days. I refused to even consider the possibility of reconciliation. My loss of trust would have destroyed us completely, and I finally made Leslie understand. She didn't like it, but she understood. I think we parted ways as friends. The next day, I took the big step and opened my own business. I took the money from the partnership and opened my own repair shop in a nearby town. I moved there to open a workshop because the city was almost twice the size of my hometown. I was only 30 minutes from my hometown, so I was still close. This was a significant achievement for a young man my age. It was a little difficult at first, but soon I had 2 guys working, and we had a booking booked at least 2 weeks in advance. The reason my shop is successful is because we do the job right the first time and we stand behind our service. It was 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I can't work on cars as often as I'd like. Now paperwork, management, and customer service take up a lot of my time. The downturn in the economy hasn't hurt my business. If anything, it has increased it. People didn't buy new cars as often and had to keep the old ones running. This increased the work for me. I decided to hire another mechanic and an office manager. This will allow me to get back to working on cars. The shop was closed, and I was in my office trying to figure out expenses. I heard someone knocking on the store door. Looking out the office door, I saw a woman at the door. I got up, went to the door, and shouted through the glass that we were closed. "Can you take a quick look at my car? The lights are getting dimmer, and I need to get home. Please, I'll pay you for your troubles." I was weak in front of beautiful women. She was tall, slender, with red hair and freckles. The perfect Irish lady. I was lost. I opened the door and told her to come in. "Thank you, I need to get home as soon as possible. My name is Julie O'Reilly," she said, shaking my hand. Her handshake was firm, not like that of an ordinary woman. "John Henry Kelly," I answered. She really is Irish, I thought. "Bring the car in, let's see what the problem is." The car was a vintage Mustang convertible. She gave me more information about how the car was performing. I opened the hood and, using my skills, found the problem within 5 minutes. I explained that her alternator was faulty and the car was running on battery power. This is why the headlights dim. I explained that the car would soon die and would not start again. "Can you fix this? I really need to get home as soon as possible," she asked. "Can't fix it tonight because we don't have the parts, but it will be done by the end of the day tomorrow. You can use the phone in the store to call someone to pick you up. I'll stay until they get there. I'm not married, but I can call a taxi. Will you stay until he arrives? I nodded, and she made the call. She was upset when she ended the call. It turned out that the taxi would wait 40 minutes. You know what, Julie? I'll close up the store and take you home if waiting for a cab is a problem for you. Normally, I wouldn't let you worry, but I really need to get home. My dad is home alone. He will get up and start moving if no one is around to stop him. He broke his leg in a motorcycle accident, and he needs to stay away from legs, so I accept your offer. Thank you. I locked the store again, put Julie in my truck, and drove her home. During the 30-minute journey, we talked a lot and became friends. She was an office manager at a real estate agency. Her mother died and her father lived with her when he wasn't traveling. Julie listened to my story, at her insistence, I will add. Overall, time passed quickly. Nice house, I thought when I drove up to her entrance. Julie invited me to dinner as a thank you for the trip, and she wouldn't take no for an answer. I met her father, and we became friends immediately. I was sad to leave, but enjoyed a very good dinner and great company. The next day, Julie came to my shop to pick up the car. She wanted to pay more for the trip home, but I refused. We discussed this for a minute, and I suggested a compromise. Buy me a cup of coffee from the diner next door, and we'll be even. I got a nice dinner last night as a thank you. She agreed to coffee. This was the beginning of our romance. We discovered that we had common interests such as country music, classic rock, rhythm and blues, same taste in cinema and similar political views. It was amazing. She was the female version of me, and of course more attractive. We went on a few dates, and I started to fall in love with her. A lot. I've been burned before, so I made it clear that I wanted an exclusive relationship. She simply smiled and said, of course. Our meetings became more intense. We went hiking, fishing, to the movies, and just sat at home and talked. It was perfect. About 8 months into our relationship, 7 months, 2 weeks and 4 days to be exact. But who's counting, I proposed to Julie. She laughed and cried at the same time, and she said yes. We were supposed to get married in 6 months. 3 months before the wedding, an obstacle occurred on the way. Not an obstacle, but a whole mountain. It was Thursday, and I was closing the shop when I had a visitor. Jenny came into my office and asked to talk. I was very surprised because I hadn't seen her since the night Leslie and I broke up over 2 years ago. What are you doing here, Jenny? I need your help. Actually, Leslie needs your help, John. I didn't know who else to turn to. Leslie and I broke up over 2 years ago. Why are you contacting me now, Jenny? Jenny asked me to just listen to her. She explained that about a year and a half after our breakup, Leslie's parents died in a car accident. Leslie had no money other than her part-time job. The house where her family lived belonged to the parish, so she had to move. Leslie moved in with Jenny for a while, but Jenny was leaving for a job in another state in 6 weeks. 2 weeks after Leslie moved in, she and Jenny were at an ice cream parlor and met Bill. Leslie hasn't seen him since that night at the Crystal Palace. Leslie and Bill started dating again. Leslie then moved in with Bill the same week Jenny left town. Last month, Jenny returned to her hometown. Her job in another state closed due to the economy. She met Leslie at a gas station and couldn't believe the change in her. Leslie had lost weight, had bags under her eyes as if she hadn't slept, and bruises on her face. Jenny asked what was going on, but Leslie didn't want to talk and left. Jenny watched and saw Leslie around town. Leslie always looked bad with new cuts on her face every time Jenny saw her. Eventually, Jenny forced Leslie into the ladies' room at the gas station and demanded to know what was going on. Bill turned into a jealous, cruel bastard. He beat Leslie. If she stayed too long in the store, didn't have dinner ready on time, or just for fun, he would beat her. Leslie tried to leave twice, but she had nowhere to go, and Bill always found her. She was afraid to go to the police. She was afraid of what Bill would do. Leslie left Bill again and hid in an abandoned hut outside the city. The cabin was once part of a church camp, but has not been used for 10 years. Jenny wanted me to go and get Leslie and help her leave Bill. Jenny said, Leslie doesn't know I'm here. I know you don't owe me anything, but you said Leslie is still your friend. She really needs help. Please, John, I don't know who else to turn to. I'll have to think about it, Jenny. I don't know if I want to get involved, but I'll think about it. Call me tomorrow night. I'll give you the answer. I thought I needed to talk to Julie about this before I promised anything. I knew what I wanted to do, but Julie was part of my life now, and she had a right to at least know what was going on. If I do what I set out to do, I could end up in jail if something goes wrong, or even lose my shop. That evening, Julie and I had to make final decisions about flowers and other things. She talked about colors and arrangements and things like that. I didn't listen. Okay, John, what's on your mind? You haven't heard a word about flowers or anything. What are you thinking about? She smiled when she said this. There's a decision I have to make, and I can't figure out what to do, Julie. I want your opinion, but you need to hear the whole story before you say anything, okay? Of course, John, what happened? How can I help? I started from the beginning, from those years at the county fair, the time after my return to the city and my breakup with Leslie. Julie wasn't very happy hearing about my ex-girlfriend, but she listened without interrupting. When I finished, I asked her what she thought. Let's see, you want to go and play hero with your ex-girlfriend. In the process of rescuing her, you could end up in jail or lose your business. Is that right, John? Julie seemed angry. You forgot about helping a woman in real trouble. She has no one to turn to, and perhaps I can help. I can't make the decision for you, John. You have to decide for yourself. Just remember, if you decide to help her, you're jeopardizing our upcoming wedding and our future together. Are you saying that if I help Leslie, we'll be done? Is that what you're saying, Julie? Now I was a little angry. Julie looked at me for a moment and then lowered her head. She was upset and tried to pull herself together. It's a simple question, Julie. A yes or no answer is all that is required. Why should you help her? Julie asked in a quiet voice. If it was an old friend from school or work, would you react this way? I answered. No, but you weren't in love with an old friend. You were in love with Leslie. That's the difference, Julie replied. The key word in that statement is was. It was a long time ago. You still haven't answered the question, Julie. If I help Les, will we be done with you? I don't know, she said. I was stunned. I never thought that there would be any resistance to my desire to help a friend in need. I thought we would discuss together how best to help me help Leslie. I had no idea that Julie would be completely against my helping Leslie. The old girl never entered my thoughts. I got up to go home. Usually we stayed together, either at my place or at her place. I told Jenny I'll give her the answer tomorrow night. When I make a decision, I'll call you before meeting Jenny. Julie just nodded and turned away as I tried to kiss her goodbye. Really? I said. I went out and tried to slam the door, but it had a door closer. It was an empty gesture. The next day, I spent most of the morning thinking about the problem. I couldn't make a decision. The situation with Leslie and Julie was constantly running through my head. I decided to work on the car to stop thinking. During a complex engine repair, my thoughts became clearer. I think letting my brain work on the problem in the background gave me the push I needed to make a decision. I called Julie to tell her about my decision and to discuss our situation. When Julie answered, I said, I'm going to try to help Leslie. She hung up without saying a word. I think this was a clear answer that Julie would leave me if I helped Leslie. Now I needed to figure out the hard part. Well, the hardest part was losing Julie. How can I help Leslie so that, first, I don't go to jail, and second, Bill doesn't bother Leslie anymore? All good questions that I didn't have answers to yet. I had to think of something quickly because Leslie couldn't stay in that cabin for long. Jenny called just as I began to develop an idea that might meet the necessary criteria. I told Jenny I was going to help Leslie, but I couldn't do anything until Saturday night. She needed to secretly bring Leslie to my shop after dark today. I told Jenny to drive to the back of the building and I would open the door for them. Leslie could stay in the small apartment above the workshop. I used it sometimes when I was working very late. She'll be safe there until I put the plan into action. They arrived at 9 o'clock, and Jenny was right. Leslie looked terrible. Thanks for helping me, John, Leslie said. I don't know where to go, but at least I'll get away from Bill. Leslie, if my plan works, you will have to testify against Bill in court. Can you do that? Just give me a chance. What's your plan? Don't worry about it. You and Jenny stay here until Saturday morning. He doesn't know you're here, and he wouldn't be able to find you even if he knew. It'll all be over tomorrow night, I hope. I spoke to my two mechanics on Saturday morning, told them my plan, and asked for their help. They agreed to help. Oh, what was my plan, you ask? A simple plan, painful but simple. Bill used to go to the Crystal Palace on Saturday nights, Jenny told me. I was going to provoke him into attacking me in front of witnesses. The plan was for Bill to be arrested, charged with assault, and for me to take him to civil court. Also, when he is in prison, Leslie will file a domestic violence complaint against him. I believed that we could send him to prison for a long time, at least long enough for Leslie to escape. The alternative would be to beat him. I would be arrested, charged, sued, and Leslie would still be in danger. I know it's not the best plan in the world, but it's all I had. When I encounter Bill, I will be wearing a sound transmitter. Hopefully, he will turn himself in, and the tape will provide evidence to convict him of domestic violence. On Saturday morning, Jenny had to take Leslie to a women's shelter about 100 miles outside of town. If the plan works, Leslie will return to file charges. If it doesn't work, she'll stay at the shelter until we can figure out something else. Leslie could always move far away, but she wanted to stay in her hometown. This may not be possible since she needed to get rid of Bill's control. On Saturday evening, I stood in the Crystal Palace parking lot, waiting for Bill to arrive. At 8 o'clock, he arrived in his tall truck with another guy. I waited until 9:45 to give them time to have a few drinks before going inside. I saw Bill as I walked past the bar. He and his friend were sitting at a table near the dance floor. If the empty glasses were theirs, they certainly weren't sitting in one place. They drank quite a lot. Okay, I needed Bill to be a little out of control for the plan to work. I stopped at the bar, grabbed a beer, and nodded to my two colleagues. They arrived at the bar early to check out the place. Their part of the plan was simple, to prevent me from being seriously injured or killed. If Bill and his friend had attacked me, my boys would have stopped Bill's friend from helping Bill. They would also try to prevent Bill from killing me. I was going to make Bill so angry that he would attack me. This was the only way to get the required results. When the band took a break, I walked across the dance floor and stood in front of Bill's table, 10 feet away. I just stood there until he noticed me. Then I grinned at him, laughed, and shook my head. This caught his attention. What do you want, John? Bill frowned and didn't seem sober. It's nothing special, Bill. I'm just surprised that you dared to appear in public. I mimicked him. Bill had vision problems. He looked at me and asked, What are you talking about? I mean, you can't keep your woman, and you should be ashamed of it. You mean Leslie? I have her in my arms. She is with her aunt in Moberly and will be back tomorrow. Bill, she doesn't have an aunt in Moberly. She came back to me, and I hid her in a motel out of town. Looks like I stole your woman and didn't even try. You must be some man. Your woman left twice from you to me, and you say you control her? That doesn't work very well. I give her the back of my hand if she gets out of line, Bill admitted. Leslie is afraid to cross me because she knows I'll send her to the hospital again if she crosses me. You probably didn't hit her too hard because she's back with me. You're lying, he shouted. No, she said she wouldn't mind the beating if the sex was good, but you couldn't even do that. You're lying, he shouted. No, she said you're not very good in bed. I think that last remark infuriated Bill. He growled and rushed across the table towards me. His friend also headed towards me. The plan was to let Bill hit me a few times and then get away before I got seriously injured. It didn't quite work out that way. The Crystal Palace employs some of the biggest men I've ever seen as bouncers, and 3 of them showed up to stop the fight. Thank God, I thought. They grabbed Bill and subdued him. His friend looked around, decided to leave, and drove off. One of the bouncers helped me to my feet. He helped me to a chair and told me the sheriff was on his way. I asked my friends to write down the names of some other people as witnesses and waited for the police. The sheriff arrived, conducted a short investigation, and arrested Bill. He said he was pressing charges of assault with a weapon, drunkenness, and disorderly conduct, damaging private property and disturbing the peace. Bill was holding a bottle when he attacked me, and it was an assault with a weapon. He also broke a table, and there was damage to private property. As he was being handcuffed, Bill began cursing at the sheriff and tried to break free. The sheriff added resisting arrest and interfering with an officer in the performance of duty. That's right, keep adding charges against Bill, that's good. I was asked to come to the station on Monday to sign a complaint against Bill. I had an unscheduled meeting at the hospital on Saturday evening. I had several injuries that required treatment. So, this plan did not protect me from serious injury. Oh well, life is pain, and then you die. On Monday, I learned that Bill will be charged with all the charges the sheriff mentioned plus a couple others. Bill was denied bail due to threats he made to the sheriff and his deputies. I contacted my business attorney and asked him to file a civil lawsuit against Bill. It was a nasty lawsuit. Bill had nothing. The lawsuit was simply to keep Bill busy and to get him to forget about Leslie, at least for a while. I also made 2 calls on Monday morning. I did one with joy and the other not so much. I called Leslie and Jenny and told them the news and told Leslie that she would need to come back and file a report against Bill. This will give us the full set of charges against him. He will go to prison for at least 5 years. Another call was from Julie. The last time I called her, she hung up. I hoped she would calm down and talk to me. I waited until early evening and called her at home. This conversation should not have happened at work. Julie's father answered the phone. He at least seemed glad to hear from me. He said Julie told him what I was doing. This is a good and noble cause, John. Don't let my stubborn daughter convince you otherwise. Moment of truth, Julie answered the phone. Hey, John, what do you want? It's very cold, Julie. I just wanted to tell you that everything worked out. Bill will go to prison and Leslie can move on with her life. It's good for both of you, isn't it? Julie said. There's nothing between me and Leslie. She's just a friend who needs help. Don't you understand that, Julie? Why is helping her any different from helping any other old friend? You were in love with her, that's what's different. Maybe you're still in love. You would have gotten married if she hadn't lied to you. This is that old friend you just have to help. At first, I didn't understand. If she cares about you so much and hurt her then, why do you want to help her now? Now I know it's only because you still love her, John. That's not true, darling. You are the one I love. You are the one I want to marry. And you are the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. Only you. She was in deep trouble and needed help. I don't see it that way, John, and I probably never will. I can't marry a man unless I'm sure I'm the only woman he loves. I'm not sure you feel that way, John. Goodbye. Julie hung up. Maybe she'll calm down in a couple of days, I thought. I'll call her then and try to convince her that I love only her. On Wednesday evening, I called Julie again. She answered, but didn't seem happy to hear from me. I haven't changed my mind, John. You knew how I felt before you started this mission of mercy, and you did it anyway. That tells me a lot. I think we're done, John. Please don't call me again. She hung up again. The next day, the courier delivered the package to me, but there was no return address on the envelope. Inside was Julie's ring and the key to my apartment. I think it showed her feelings clearly. I tried to see or talk to Julie several times, but she refused to answer my calls. I saw her in the city and tried to talk to her. She simply ignored me and walked past. Finally, I gave up. That same day, I received a call from Leslie. Thank you for helping me, John. I don't know how much longer I could have gone on. I owe you this, Les, and I'm glad you're free of that bastard. What are your plans? I'm at the women's shelter now. First, I'll come back with everything to file a formal report against Bill. Then I'll stay here for a few days until the abrasions have faded a little. After that, I'm not entirely sure. John, is there a chance that we could be together again? I still love you and want to be with you. I went to Bill after you left because there was no other place to go. Please, John, I know that you still care about me too. I really care about you, Leslie, maybe even love you a little. But there's nothing left between us. It was a long time ago. I forgave you for running off with Bill when we were dating. I even forgave you for lying to me. I have forgiven, but I cannot forget it. Okay, John, I get it. I should have asked you. I won't bother you anymore. Thanks again for saving me, John. You're a good friend, Leslie said. Keep me posted, Les, and let me know how you're doing. If you need anything, call me Les. I'll be there, I promised her. Well, I did what I thought was right for my friend, but it cost me my fiancé and my future. I spent about a month trying to forget Julie through drinking. My business started to suffer, but at that point I didn't care. An old acquaintance and a new friend came to tell me that Bill had been sentenced to 5 years in prison. Between the assault charge and the domestic violence charges filed by Leslie, he's going to jail for a long time. She also pointed out that I could lose everything I had worked for because of my drinking. She said it would be a shame if I fell apart after doing such a heroic thing in helping an old friend. My new friend also reminded me that I had gotten over Leslie and that I could get over Julie. She said, I need a new woman in my life. We discussed my problem, and I decided that she was right and greatly reduced my alcohol consumption. I also decided that she was right about the new woman in my life. I asked her who it could be, and she said that she had changed her mind about me when I agreed to help Leslie, and that perhaps I was not such a lost cause. I guess we'll have to explore our newfound company. I heard that Leslie moved to another state to live with her aunt and uncle. She is doing well and has gone back to school. She plans to get the education and training needed to help abused women and children. While her training is not completed, she volunteers at a women's shelter. It was nice to hear that she had found purpose and was moving on. Now you can join me here at the bar as I sit with my second drink and wait for my friend. She's already saved me from myself, so I'm looking forward to where this friendship can lead. Here she comes. You remember Jenny, don't you?